Okay, great. Now we have some visuals. So it sounds like Wendy was here not too long ago. So I won't dwell on certain things that you might have already heard from us, but I really am excited to be here to introduce myself and to get to know all of you. So I've been in Petersburg since October, and I've been in Virginia only for about a year. So I'm getting to know folks all across the region, spent some time in Richmond, and then came down here. So I've never had a warmer welcome anywhere that I've moved to. People are talkers down here in the South, and so it seems like wherever I go, I meet somebody interesting. Um, so yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit today about our vision, which I know you've heard, and our mission, just to kind of ground us in that. Talk about some volunteer opportunities, some things that are on the horizon, and things that we're up to now. Um, but people always say first, who are you and why are you here? And what is your connection to the river, right? And to the work that we do. And so, just a little bit about me. I grew up in rural Michigan, southern Michigan, near Indiana, in the country. We had a two-bedroom house. We chopped wood for heat. We were able to use the farmer's land for things like hunting and fishing. And there was a little river next to us called Blackhawk, and so we would go out there all the time and see the turtles and the geese, and we would fish. My cousins would do. Have you ever seen the show Hillbilly Hand Fishing?
Yeah.
And then there's another show where they shoot carp with bows and arrows. That's kind of what my cousins got up to on the river. But spent a lot of time in nature, right? And felt really connected to it as a kid. And then as I got older, I got more and more involved with conservation and advocacy efforts. I was a member of my local community foundation. I was on the board at 14 because they had a youth on boards program there. And so that's how I got to know Rotary and kind of all the different pieces that go into improving and sustaining our communities and all the people that are involved in that work. Went into education for a while, so went from nonprofits, became a professor. I was a professor at Northwestern University in Chicago and then Ball State University in Indiana, not too far from where I grew up. And then I went into administration, wanted to make a difference, wanted to make change, wanted to kind of make things better before turning back and kind of coming home and saying, I want to feel more rooted in my community. I was volunteering with Folar when they posted the job, and so it's so aligned with my goals and my values as a person, and I hope that I can bring something to the table. So, okay. So Folar works in partnership with the community. That's important to conserve, protect, and promise or promote the Appomattox River for all to enjoy. We capitalize all. We have 6 different jurisdictions along the lower Appomattox River. We serve all of those jurisdictions. We're very involved with all of those jurisdictions. So we have Dinwiddie, Petersburg, Chesterfield, Colonial Heights, Prince George, and Hopewell. Is that 6? I think I got 6. Okay, cool. You can see here that our board reflects that commitment to all of our communities along the river. We have 2 members from every jurisdiction. We're looking for a Colonial Heights, so hit me up. We have a couple board vacancies on there. So you can see them all here. We have some ex officio seats, so these kind of permanent seats for various institutions. And so we have someone from corporate, we have American Water. That's always a board seat that's on there. We have Virginia State University representation. They're right on the river there, one of our key stakeholders, and then the Crater Planning District Commission. So if you don't know the history of FOLAR, we were kind of spun off of Crater Planning District, along with the Economic Development Group and some of the other groups that work with them. Some really exciting things. We can start with that access part of our mission. It's been a couple years now, not quite 2 years. We've been in the Appomattox River Center, so now you can come and see us. We're no longer in the basement of Crater Planning District. We are in downtown Petersburg, 235 North Market Street. It's a beautiful place, and when you come and see it, how many of you have seen it? Been to the Appomattox River Center? Okay. That was all done by volunteers. It was concrete, right? It was a brewery for a minute, but it was an old Oldsmobile shop. And so volunteers came in and painted and built walls and put things up. And it's just stunning what they were able to do in about 6 months once we moved into that building. And then another exciting thing that is very much related to access is the upgrades to the Appomattox River Regional Park. Do you know where that is? That's if you go up River Road up to the jails, the area where the jails are in Prince George County. There's a park at the end of that with stretches of trail along the river. I really encourage you to go visit. It's a beautiful space if you can get by all of the base and the jails on your way there. And we are about to, I shouldn't say we, but in partnership with Prince George and some other partners, we're breaking ground on improvements to that park. So paving, and I know paving is controversial, but when we do pave, there's a lot of environmental studies that go into that about runoff and erosion and things like that. But paving to make it more accessible. We'll talk a little bit in a minute about meditation garden and some pathways and things through there. So that's really exciting. When it comes to conservation, you might know one of our staff members, Heather Barrar. She works in government relations and she handles a lot of the conservation work. But we're really seeking to protect the land along the Appomattox riverfront. So when we say the river, we're also talking about its banks and its communities, right? That's the work that we do. And so that involves arranging land acquisition, right, conservation, for that riparian shoreline along the river. And then when it comes to wellness, we have an environmental stewardship scholarship with the John Randolph Foundation, the 5K River Trail Run Walk. If you haven't seen that, you can run it, you can walk it, you can watch it. That's also at the Appomattox River Regional Park up there. And then, of course, we have the 16th annual paddle battle, which is going to start in Petersburg and end in Hopewell. They told me that one year it started in Hopewell and ended in Petersburg. Were any of you a part of that? That sounds difficult. I don't want to go upriver in a kayak. I'd love to kayak, but that sounds too hard for me. So 132 paddlers last year. This year, we're at double.
God bless you.
Not double 132, but we're at double the amount of registrations that we had at this time last year.
Good.
So we'll see. Yeah, it might be just a lot of early registrations, or we might have a lot more people this year. We're really excited about that. And that's September 27th in the morning. Okay, and then there's volunteer engagement. So when I started at FOLAR, I said, you know, I'm really excited to be joining an organization that has so much support from the community and that's really cherished by its volunteers and its community. I mentioned the building, but there's also so many other things that our volunteers do. We have, I think that's a low estimate, I think we have over 500 total volunteers with 1,300, almost 1,400 hours served in our last fiscal year. 52 volunteer events, and about 46 to 65,000 in total volunteer labor value. So that's how much they're bringing to the table just in terms of labor. Bringing a lot more. Okay. I mentioned the Appomattox River Center, and you know, there was a lot of question about, does FOLAR need a space like that? What is FOLAR going to do with a space like that? And so for us, it's all about engaging the community, bringing the community in. Lots of partners and nonprofits will rent out our space, right? They can come in and use that either for free or for a small donation. So we have the Petersburg Garden Club, which last year held a native plant presentation. And there you see Elise giving that presentation. This year, it's going to be the home base for the garden tour in Petersburg. So really partnering with the community, doing more education events at the River Center. And then we have trail counts coming up. So September 4th, which is a Thursday, and September 6th, which is a Saturday. We're looking for volunteers to kind of station themselves at the end of various trailheads. If you go to our website, you can sign up for a specific place and times. And you sit there for about 2 hours and you observe. So we have all kinds of ways of counting people on the trails, but this one's really interesting because it's more qualitative. right? People are sitting there and saying, okay, I see a lot of families, or I see people boating, right? And like describing what they're seeing at the trailhead so that we can get a sense of the diversity of trail uses and users. And there's lots of traffic on our trail.
I was about to ask, comparison to the 23.3, 22.2 data, is that up or down from previous years?
It is up. It's going up at kind of a steady pace, right? Anecdotally, I've gone to some trailheads that seem kind of hard to get to, right? Because we're working on connecting and we're working on kind of elevating access to the trailheads, and I just see so many people coming out. So our trails, our trails, everyone in the room, they are used by the community. Okay. So for State of the Trail, that's where I think if you were here for Wendy's presentation, a lot of what she shared is some of it's underway now, some of it's still kind of in the planning stages. And if you look at our master plan, there's two pieces. There's actually building the trail itself or doing upgrades on existing trail. That's a big part of the work. So there might be an unpaved trail that's getting paved. There might be a trail that's kind of impassable that then gets gravel, right? So upgrades are a part of it. But then there's also the signage piece, which is actually kind of a big project, right? Like how do we brand this? How do we provide wayfinding for people on the trail? And we work with local communities on that too. So they might build a section, but they draw on that, those kind of marketing materials for wayfinding so that trail users have a consistent experience across the trail. And here you can see we've layered in a little bit more local flair into that signage plan. So Petersburg has its own icons. We have Hopewell, City Point, Pocahontas Island, Prince George County, and Battersea. And this is the route. So if you're not familiar with kind of the big picture of this project, it's running all the way from City Point and Hopewell over to Lake Cheston and Dinwiddie. And we have sections of the trail open all along this route. There's a really beautiful section here in Lake Cheston, or coming off of Lake Cheston, and then another one here. There's a lot on the other side, and so part of the plan is to try and get bridges to connect across the river. And one of the most exciting things that's happening, I don't know if this was announced last time, is the Fall Line Trail. Any of you heard of the Fall Line Trail?
Yes.
It runs from Ashland up north of Richmond, maybe 20 miles north of Richmond, 30, all the way down to Petersburg. It's part of the East Coast Greenway. So that's a really big deal because that's going to connect Richmond to this trail. It's going to connect the Capitol Trail to this trail, right? So there's a big network that we're actually a part of. And so Fall Line is going to come down. It's going to come through Virginia State University, cross the river with a beautiful bridge, and it's going to anchor in Patton Park in Petersburg, and then with wayfinding signs to get people downtown to Petersburg. So it's really exciting connection. And they're starting the stretch pretty soon. They think spring. Their VDOT is going to start the stretch from Chester to Petersburg. We're not sure if they're going to start that in Petersburg or start it in Chester, or maybe both. But be on the lookout for construction around that and improvements to Patton Park in Petersburg. Oh, and I should show you, if you haven't been to the Prince George Appomattox River Regional Park, it's up here. So you come up River Road. Yeah, it's up here. Without the streets, it's sometimes hard for me to tell. It's another map. Yep, you can see Appomattox River Regional Park up there. And then the largest stretch that has yet to be built actually goes from Hopewell through the base or around the base to Petersburg. So that's the big connection that we're looking to make, right? There's the Fall Line, but then there's also connecting Hopewell and Petersburg. There's a grant that we're working on with the military to kind of double up, and they want a buffer on the side of the base, and then we want a trail, right? They want a trail for people who live on the base. So we're working together to try to get that section built. It's about 7 miles long. So this kind of old slide says completed construction plans at Appomattox River Regional Park. They're about to break ground in a couple weeks. Real shovels in the ground on that one. And then there's the Tri-Cities Multimodal Mobility Plan. So this is really just working with area transit officials, right? These are shared use paths that are walking and biking, and then also considering bus routes and things like that. Hopewell River Walk. Have you been on the Hopewell River Walk? The boardwalk there?
Yeah.
Have you noticed how you get to the end and then you have to turn around and come back? Working on completing that loop through City Park and getting that finished in partnership with American Water and with the City of Hopewell. And then the Prince George Comprehensive Plan is that longer stretch that I was telling you about. Okay. We're adding to the conservation area along the riparian buffer on the river, 3.5 acres protected in Ettrick, 27 acres around Harville Dam, 9.7 acres of riverfront trail alignment acquired, and the 2 acres at Patton Park is on here as a goal. So there's a National Park Service grant that Petersburg is working on securing for improvements to Patton Park. And then VDOT is going to make improvements to Patton Park as well as part of the Fall Line Trail. Okay. So about 24% of the river corridor is protected, not just from development, but also that means kind of restored, right? So the river banks can't just be grass and geese. You're going to get a lot of erosion with stuff like that. Part of the restoration and protection of the river means creating a natural buffer along its banks, so natural plants. How I got involved with solar was removing invasive species over by the University Boulevard trailhead. So a lot of that riverfront in parts is choked out by things like wisteria, invasive wisteria, non-native wisteria, privet, things like that. So there's a lot of like hands-on work that you can get involved in to help restore the riverbanks, and it's really incredible. I mean, we'll spend one day out there with 8 volunteers, and at the end of the day, just the wall of vegetation that you once saw is now this kind of open place for native plants to start recovering and coming back. Okay. Trail construction. There's also a new pedestrian bridge and paving at Ferndale Park. So Ferndale Park is in Dinwiddie, but it's Petersburg. So when you step foot on Ferndale Park, you're in Petersburg, but it's surrounded by Dinwiddie. And it's out there on off of Ferndale Road there. There's extensions in Colonial Heights, and then there's rumors of more extensions in Colonial Heights. They've been really good about building more and more to try and get things connected up on that side of the river. And then, of course, the improvements at Appomattox River Regional Park. So we've got projects in Ferndale, also trying to get that building restored. If you've been out there, there's a beautiful building on that property that's kind of in rough shape. Projects at Ferndale, projects at Appomattox River Regional Park. There's the Patton Park project in Petersburg, and then there's the VDOT projects trying to get things connected around Pocahontas Island and through Petersburg. Okay. This is more of an overview. I can send you the slides of kind of what that mindfulness path is going to look like at the regional park. So, you know, we're all about not just creating spaces where people can go and walk, but what does that mean, right? What kinds of things are we going to place along that trail? I already mentioned that park here and the grant through the military. This is a little visual of the Fall Line Trail as it comes through VSU and then crosses down by the arches. So this is a picture of those invasives I was telling you about. This, I believe this is right there at University Boulevard. I think I volunteered this day. This was my first day volunteering. But you could see the before with the wisteria kind of just completely taking everything over. And now it looks more open. And the goal is for us to kind of fill that in. So with the removal of invasives, you can't just rip them out, right? You also have to make sure that they don't come roaring back. And with a lot of them, when you cut them, they get worse. I found this in my house with paper mulberry. I cut a bunch of it down, and then it started coming up like under all of our houses. It was everywhere. So Elise, our environmental stewardship coordinator, is certified in herbicide application. And so we don't go out and spray things. She has a little tool, a little dopper, and when we cut something, we dab the end of it so that we're not spreading pesticide all over the place, right? And that's a systemic or herbicide. It's a systemic herbicide that will go down and get the root system of the privet or whatever it is. So it's an unpleasant but really important part of restoring the riverbank and the work that we do. And she can certify you as well. I'm trying to get her to get me certified so I can attack that paper mulberry. You can see all the projects that we engage our volunteers in along the river on the invasive plant management piece. Train the trainer workshops, certification. Okay, so that's the killing the bad plants, right? Getting the bad plants out. And they're not bad plants, of course. They just belong somewhere else. They come from somewhere else in the world where they do a great job of whatever it is they do, right? Just like the spotted lanternfly. It does a great job somewhere else, but it's kind of ruining things for us here. So once we get those out, what is the rest of the story? What are the native plants that grow along these trails that we depend on, right, in these ecosystems? And so you see Elise here at our native plant garden. I can't tell if this is the one at University Boulevard. I think that it is, but she has an education project there. So if you go to University Boulevard, you'll see a native plant garden with some signage and take your kids there. And then Appomattox River Regional Park improvements, it's gonna have a native plant garden there as well. And then we're working with the Petersburg Garden Club to try and get something, don't quote me, but maybe on Pocahontas Island, maybe closer to downtown. So if you go to our website, you can sign up for native plant walks with Elise, where she'll take you out. You can download an app on your phone to scan plants. You just take a picture of the plant. Has anybody done this before?
No.
It's awesome. I didn't know enough about plants when I started this job. I'm like, the river, and Elise says, no, you've got to get this app. And so you walk through the woods and kind of scan things and see what they are, and she'll tell you all about them. Okay. And then, of course, we have a lot of events throughout the year to engage folks. There's the State of the Trail every February, which is kind of like this, but a little longer, a little more detailed. We have the whole staff there. And Heather's really the best person, our staff member, Heather Barar, to update on the status of those trail projects. She's out right now, but I'm catching up quickly on the status of those. We have the 5K every March, usually pretty good weather for that. And then the Community Service Awards in May. So be thinking about that for next year. If there's people you want to nominate or you want to email us and say, hey, I think this person's really someone who's been helping out. And then we have the paddle battle on September 27th. Okay. The save the date's old. That's from last year. But thank you, and I'll take any questions. I'll do my best to answer them if we have time. Do we have time? Okay, great.
As you coming into this new role for you, what are you most excited about?
I'm excited about a lot of things. This is a really exciting time to come in because so many of these projects and so much of the work that Wendy and Heather have been doing with our partners is coming online. So I'm really, really excited to be breaking ground at Ferndale and ARRP. Really, really excited to be working with the base on finishing that longer kind of beast of a connection there. I'm excited about the ways in which our regional partners are coming together in new ways. So historically, we haven't had as close of a relationship with places like the James River Association, but now we're working together, right? There's the Capitol Trail Land Conservancy, and so sitting on each other's boards, working together, taking advantage of the resources that each of us bring to the table is really exciting. And I'm excited for planning for when this trail is done. So we're talking a lot about what is FOLAR going to be, right, when the trail is built. We're not going to manage the trail. We're not going to maintain the trail, right? That's the municipalities and the governments along the way that are also building the trail. So what does it mean to be a friend of the lower Appomattox River, right? And for us, that means connecting communities to the river. So whether that's through educational projects, again, signage, collaborating with regional partners to get people to the river, to understand the river, to continue those conservation efforts along the shore. And then that also means to me, making Folar a sustainable organization that's going to be here forever. So don't tell anybody, but I'm thinking about a campaign called Friends Forever, where we're asking folks to make a deeper investment in what it is that we do, and then us making a deeper commitment, right, to really stick around and kind of expand and grow the work that we're doing with our community. So, yeah. I'm also excited to be able to walk to work. That's probably the best thing. Yeah.
What's the longest connecting trail in our area, just close by?
Let me look at that map here. I've been on all of them, but now I'm trying to think, what is the longest connected piece? So University Boulevard is about to be extended for a third mile. So that's the one over by VSU. Um, Appomattox River Regional Park's trails aren't really on the path. They're offshoot trails. I think Colonial Heights is probably where you get the biggest cluster and the best connections right now, because they've been going gangbusters on their trail construction.
Does Colonial Heights connect to Petersburg yet, or?
No, so when the fall line comes in, it will. So
When-
they've got stuff all on the other side of the river there.
When is that supposed to be?
So the fall line's gonna break ground on that section from Chester to Petersburg in the spring, hopefully. That's what they're saying. We don't have an official announcement yet. And we're trying to get them to start in Petersburg, but we'll see. They might start it in Chester, or the middle. We don't know, but that's coming. Yeah, it's not just a plan kind of off in the ether.
A great thought.
Yeah. So once that's connected, right, you'll have University Boulevard connected, the other kind of VDOT trails in Petersburg that haven't been built yet, but they'll be built through 2029. And then it'll cross the river, and then you have Colonial Heights. So Colonial Heights,
Is that the Roslyn Landing Trail?
you have Roslyn Landing going in two directions with an extension up to Jennick Avenue. There's a developer talking about building a connector into that trail, which would be really nice. We're trying to get them to do it up to standard. And then there's also two other access points and trailheads on either side of the Adams Street Bridge there, MLK Bridge. So if you go across the bridge and go left, you'll see trail, and if you go right, you'll see trail there too, up to Roslyn Landing.
Up or down?
Up from the bridge to Roslyn Landing, and then east or west down to a few 100 meters. Yeah.
And I apologize for this, but as far as safety wise, when I'm walking some of these trails, like especially at the crater, you're in the middle of nowhere, and no one would ever know you're there. Is there any like safety things like on college campuses? They have the little thing for. Is there anything like that been thought of, or any concern for it? Maybe and I apologize for that. But,
No, it's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, these places can be dark, they can be isolated. That's my thing. It's like, I don't care where I am. If it's isolated, then I'm a little concerned. So from our perspective, most of the work that we've done has been on the planning. So the master planning of the trail and thinking about what's needed. And then the municipalities, the counties and the cities are really kind of in charge of what do we do with this trail as a part of Petersburg, as a part of Dinwiddie. So I imagine there'll be some through, I don't want to commit for VSU, but I imagine there'll be something like that through there. We don't have that as a part of our plans. But I also think that the cutting back and the paving and right, all of that is going to help with safety. So if you go to a place like Pocahontas Island, that trail is a little grown over. And so we're working on kind of opening it up a little bit, and when the parking lots get paved and there's lighting in the parking lots, that will help as well. Yeah.
There's crazy people everywhere.
Not today. I'm on my behavior today.
All right. Well, thank you so much for inviting me here today. I know I'll see many of you at Paddle Battle and other things.
Okay, hold on for a second.
And thank you for coming out and speaking to us. We do want to present you with our Rotary pen. So when you're signing your grants or whatever it is, then please utilize that and come back anytime. We do have memberships if you want to become a member as well too. But
Yeah, send me that. Send me some membership stuff.
I certainly will. So thank you so much for coming out. And